Prose poem for Roque Dalton. I believe the world is beautiful and that poetry, like bread, is for everyone. Quote from Roque Dalton. Change, our only hope, though it carries some pain in memory for what is gone. As when I walked into a first-world California bilingual classroom, which would never have existed during the Cold War, when I first met Roque in 1968. He was on the lam, having escaped from a third-world Salvadoran prison. He had 5 escapes, so I don't know if it was the jailbreak made during the earthquake, when the prison wall crumbled and he slipped quietly away, boarding a city bus, climbing out its back door into another waiting bus. I don't know what safe houses he hid in until he crossed the border, or who helped him to safe refuge across the gray ocean to Prague. Living as a minor celebrity in the Eastern European socialist world, getting punched in the nose by an irate husband, mugged in the street by unknown assailants, and surprisingly meeting Miguel Marmol, a fellow Salvadoran exile of many miraculous lives, led to his writing Marmol's biography. Roque returned through diplomatic channels to the Americas. His humorous stories flowed on the perfumed air and blew warm waters like laughter. In El Salvador, he said, every time he spoke his truth, he was imprisoned, leaving out the parts about torturous misery as he told the trickster tales of his escape. He said he would go home through underground connections to join the armed guerrilla. Don't go, I urged, fearing his death. Don't go. He laughed as always. His death meant little to him compared to the joys of life, family, friends, writing. Slipping back into his native background wasn't simple, not a straight shot. In the guerrilla camp, the factions, the sides within the sides, the traitorous comrades killed him in 1965. All his life the words tumbled out, books, poems, and essays. He wrote that the CIA would try to use his death as a propaganda victory. But after his assassination, when the traitors defamed him, they failed. Roque's allies in the First, Second, and Third Worlds kept the record straight after his death, translation after translation. Poems and polemics passed from hand to hand and tongue to tongue. So even now, when there is no socialist bloc, no second world, the number of worlds dwindled with the decades, whose globalized boundaries and borders changed through blood and tears. And so it is, he is so remembered today as a great poet that when I entered this California bilingual classroom where the children of the first world read Roque's poem, which didn't exist when Roque and I first met because California was not as Spanish-speaking then, though it had been overwhelmingly Spanish-speaking the century before when it was called Mexico, or Aztlán by those in the know. I saw the quote from his poem on the classroom wall above the blackboard in 2 languages, in the familiar script of a primary school, felt the sorrow of his loss. Our little planet changes and the movement to protect it grows, to plug its ozone layer hole, cool its climate, to feed the ever-growing humanity with Roque's vision that, quote, poetry, like bread, is for everyone. So it was in the 80s. Well, actually it was in the 70s when Elaine and I worked in the GI anti-war movement with the FTA show. But then we reunited again in the next decade to do solidarity work for Nicaragua. And we gave our whole hearts to this. We gave all our love. And as you know, it was just a 10-year project. At the end of that time, the revolutionary project in Nicaragua came to an end. And I was heartbroken. I was crushed. And then it came at the same time as the Soviet Union dissolved. And so the feeling was that, well, that was the end of Third World liberation struggles. Though the struggles, though they continue, but guerrilla warfare. So this was written at that time because that's where most of us are coming from. We're coming from the past and we're carrying on into the future. So this was 1984, written for a San Francisco rally for peace and non-intervention in Nicaragua in the rain. And you have to understand that as I was reading the poem at this rally in the rain, the words were disappearing from the page, and they were wet, and I might have had to make up some words as I was going along. For a San Francisco rally for peace and non-intervention in Nicaragua in the rain, we will plant a white rose in the rain with our damp presence for peace. A rose rooting in San Francisco soil, growing in solidarity with the morning glories, climbing the vine to freedom, the forget-me-nots, remembering their loved ones, the pansies spouting as they please, the carnations brightening buttonholes for victory and congratulations. We plant a rose to ground peace between the Americas, fragrant as the smell of our wet hair and plastic raincoats, perfuming the clouds with sweet friendship, floating across the borders without airfares, visas, and passports, thrusting ourselves against the horn of the military budget, financing contra-raids against Nicaraguan villages, the decapitation of teachers, the rape and murder of health workers, the bombing of child care centers. Our rose of peace will grow high visibility protests, petals falling on our pink razor blade hair, dreadlocks, braids, bald spots, crew cuts, permanents, and mohawks. Under our hair we think. We remember the defoliation of Vietnam and the invasion of Grenada. We plant the seeds for the flowering of peace for our children, for our budding young men who must not be taken from us and sent home in boxes again. We plant a white rose today and other days until peace is won. Blessed are those who plant roses. Their thorn shall prick the conscience of humanity till peace is a human right. Peace is a human right. That's what I've seen the role as of poetry, is pricking the consciousness of humanity. And I'm going to close with the future, the present and the future. And I'm going to dedicate it to who I first wrote it for, my grandson, for his beautiful wedding, but also for the Occupy movement, which rekindled that hope and love that you heard rather innocently in the earlier poem. But now, of course, I'm much wiser. Be fearless, choose love. Fear of computer viruses. Fear of terrorists. Fear of the planetary extinction of our current paths, of spreading disease, of urban crime rates, drug lords owning governments, torture as a commonplace weapon, and humanless drones. Only a button to press, to explode life to smatters and splinters, only a law to pass, to steal it all. Fearless love is the only defense. Greedy power in my face, like in yours, wants to make us forget, But we cannot forget this nagging feeling, hardwired in the bones, wanting to belong snugly in the nest of our planet. Be fully accepted because we exist, and not for our documents, licenses, and wealth. From that innate primordial desire comes our fearless love, peeking around the polluted rubble of destruction, the abandoned gas stations, the poisoned waterways. We look beyond and we see other heads bobbing up and down, beaming the signal, calling to us to show our fearless love in the face of everything. Fearless love, the daily challenge. Ready or not, it is here.